Well, kia ora, my name's Liam. I've probably been composting for about, what's the year now? 2026, about 5 years. Um, and I'm calling in from beautiful Ōtepoti Dunedin. It's this is slightly scripted, by the way, so if you notice that, that's why. But we're a city of about 130,000 people. It's the wildlife capital of New Zealand, home to albatross and hoiho penguin. And it's got some sustainability stuff happening. I think it's sort of slowed down. It sort of comes and goes, but it's definitely a got a lot of potential anyway. But I work here at the Polytech, so it's a big campus. But specifically, I work at the compost hub. Um, yeah, there's sort of many names for Pōpopo. It's the worm hub, the compost hub, the stench palace, the wormporium. Pōpopo means decaying or worm eaten. And I think it's a site of decomposition and regeneration, and I really like the name. And we use a lot of worm power to process food waste produced on campus. Um, there's lots of different streams from all around campus, and per year we have 8,000 students, so it's a big emitter of organic waste. Yeah. So this is the site. The image on the left is the Gabby will recognize this. Site on the left is sort of the entrance way, and then on the right is sort of more the main site. It's kind of a funny little marginal bit between. It's like half half of it, half the boundary is DCC, half the boundary is Polytech. It's like quite a weird spot. Um, but when Pōpopo was being set up, it got consented because it's not on any wetland or any water table, and all the structures, even though it is reclaimed land, but I'm not sure how that works. But all the structures in that is pretty temporary, so apparently that's a bit of criteria that they look for is like how permanent is the stuff. So it's very movable and it's pretty scrappy. And this was the site from the street in 2010 from Google Maps, and that's what it looks like more or less right now. This little house here is a DCC like valve pump water pressure house. I'm not sure what they're doing there, but there's often guys in there doing stuff. And yeah, I've worked here part-time, doing 20 hours a week for 4 years. My role is formally the resource recovery assistant, but I'm also the bin man, the bucket guy, the worm rancher. I'm a worm rancher, and I think I'll just sort of cover like the methods and how we compost all that food waste. Oh, what do I got here? How we turn this into this. Oh yeah, look at that. Boom, boom, boom. So and I think I really want to. This is probably more of a history lesson. And like while I was writing this, I was looking into the history of how Pōpopo came to be, and it's quite interesting, and I think is quite a good story. So I think we'll dive into that. So go back to 2006. The Polytech has since this time has been looking at its sort of energy usage, its waste output, the materials it uses, and its curriculums that it teaches, and it's looking at all these different areas and how it could introduce a sustainable element to each one. Um, they did this whole pledge with the CEO at the time and a few professors who are really into it. Um, and they did heaps of research into how they could sustainify everything. And and all the programs at Polytech now have a sustainability module, from construction, fashion, nursing, hospitality, health and well-being, culinary arts as well, engineering. And then as in terms of how the Polytech works as a big institution, it churns through a lot of resources. They they also, changed a lot of operational stuff. So since 2006, there's now like a wood chip boiler that heats the whole thing. An electric vehicle fleet. They've made some new buildings with like really quite green building principles and design acronyms. There's a lot of acronyms going on there. And yeah, and also they've got collection points for a lot of different waste streams now as well. They've got like bottle caps, batteries, Tetra, most of which gets shipped to Christchurch and Auckland, but it's got pickup points here. So, you know, they really were trying to like level up the sustainability aspect of the Polytech. And in 2008, they embarked on the Living Campus scheme, and that was part of this big transition. And the aim of it was to transform the outdoor environment on campus, which, up till then, all the surrounding area was very much sort of lawns and rhododendrons, and not not super alive. And I think the plan there was to transform it and make it more interactive and more living and more engaging for students and people, other people. Students are people. And then we jump to 2009, and this is my lovely supervisor Kim here on I think on the right hand side, if that's right. Yeah, right hand side. Um, and she in 2009 was the amenity like grounds technician, one of the main ones, and a part-time horticulture teacher. And she was employed or given extra hours within the sustainability pledge, which they got funding for from multiple different areas. But she got employed to introduce a permaculture unit into the horticulture. So, you know, um, which is actually now a disbanded course, the level three horticulture diploma, which was really good. Um, but yeah, there was a whole quarter of the year was sort of a permaculture environmental module added to it. And this this big change um kind of just provided students and community groups with experience around growing food, around saving seeds, sort of teaching about natural systems, renewable resources, as beekeeping. Also part of the big permaculture thing, they changed how they did the landscaping, so there was no synthetic sprays or fertilizers used. They totally chopped that out, which is cool. Still don't. There is some organic ones, which are pretty gnarly, but nothing compared. Yeah, and barely used. So yeah, here's some current winter produce, and there's lots of edible gardens, and it's kind of there's multiple little urban sort of urban agriculture slash community garden type beds that are just available to the public and to students to come pick produce. There's about I did a rough count, and there's about 80 fruit trees and shrubs as well around. Um, and there's also native plantings, uh, planted for plants planted for sort of cultural or other uses, materials like harakeke or maybe more medicinal things as well. Um, yeah, so I think it was a big change. It was a big change since 2009 with, all the sustainability stuff getting kicked off and getting Kim to sort of do the planning and the grunt work of transforming a lot of the areas. They dug up a lot of lawns, and yeah, did quite a big dramatic transition. It's still ongoing. But this is also mainly when composting became a thing on campus. So, we're getting warmer. Um, so these bins on the left are the originals, the first ones that were introduced, and they trialed lots of different methods for students because they taught it as a part of the horticulture course, which it wasn't up until the living campus change. So they were trying to implement a more circular system for their green materials because I think it used to all just be put in the skip and shipped off. Um, so and then you buy once you ship it off, then you buy in compost and wood chip. So it's like just taking out that middle thing. Um, so yeah, composting has been here for about 18 years and it's still growing, still thriving. And there's a few, satellite compost heaps around campus for gardeners to use nice and quickly. So that's kind of a bit of a preamble of like how the Polytech was getting quite serious about making itself more sustainable. Um, oh, I've missed a bloody slide, have I? Yep. Um, oh yeah. So they'll teach students how to rear worms and also comfrey was introduced as well. That's just an example of, I guess, growing plants for composting because they just keep producing and you can keep cutting them down and they're a great green source for your compost heap. So come spring, I'm always gathering bags of comfrey to add to the compost heap. And it can take over, but it is a good additive to compost. So we've gotten rid of actually a lot of comfrey over the years because it did go crazy. So, but it is persistent and very good for compost. So, and it looks beautiful and bees love it. So that's cool too. And then I guess we go to this guy. He's kind of a random floating tea up there. I'm not sure what that is. Um, Upper left. But 10 years since they start composting, Kim and the horticulture students and living under the living campus sort of umbrella, once they start composting, this guy comes in and he is pretty all about food and people and the environment. And he did his master's on sort of how to make change. And he's a bit of an ubermensch, to be honest, and a bit of a mentor. Um, but he was noticing a lot of gaps in the sort of food waste system at Polytech. Um, so he began looking at um, sort of, yeah, well, I guess the lack of food waste collection on campus. And he was in the sort of midway through his culinary arts, I think he was sort of putting a case together for starting a food waste system. There was just there was like no organic bins around campus. It was just the red, the yellow, and the blues. And I think part of the sort of early stages of figuring it out, they did an audit of all those public bins around campus, like the ones in the hallways and in student areas. And there's some of the data that they found, which is pretty revealing. But if you don't have a green bin, it's going to be pretty bad. Do you know what I mean? It's like people really like audits though. They like data, and especially a tertiary education place. They really like to see cold hard data in order to be like, oh yeah. Um, so they did a lot of rigorous digging around in bins, and I think this bit at the bottom kind of sums it up that it was, so much was going to landfill compared to what was actually compostable or redistributable, between recycling and glass and stuff. Yeah, kind of crazy. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. Um, because at this time they were doing some food waste, like a lot of the staff room bins, the sort of, once a week sort of jobbies would go to the living campus bins, and but there's still four giant kitchens operating on campus, and most of it was just being put into landfill. So um, those bins didn't get audited because it's like you don't really need the numbers on that because it's so obvious. But and they reckoned, I think, yeah, Finn did an estimate that they would have saved $12,000 worth of skip space a year, which also institutions like that as well, like how can they, um, save money, I guess. Yeah, so I guess another part of the case that Finn was making was there was going to be, well, there was actually a new hall of residence opening, and they cook for 200 students 3 times a day, so that's heaps more food, and that kind of added to the scale and the urgency. But this, um, and he also sort of looked into how, it could connect across lots of different departments from hospitality to horticulture, design, engineering, and stuff like that. And then they were sort of sorting out the logistics, and plans were forming for connecting different departments. They had to collaborate with cleaning contractors, and sort of sort out a whole new rhythm and a whole new system for how it was all theoretical at the time, how they would take care of collection and processing. Um, and I know that they had to address a lot of the vendors and the cafe anywhere that serves food around and at the Polytech, and give them advice on actually compostable packaging and materials, just to make it easy to process, get everyone on the, streamline it. Um, but part of it was also, yeah, I guess the social benefits and the educational benefits. You can provide a classroom and get people getting their hands dirty. Like composting it's grunt work and it's honest work, and I think more people need to do it. So yeah, there was a lot of reasons for building the case for it, and like so much admin, and it sounds like it was really hard, but it got the go ahead, and in 2019 and 2020, they did a lot of permits, budgets, appeals, updates, presentations, reports. It was massive. Pretty much all done by, yeah, a lot of it was done by Finn. And his, yeah, the system change was put into play, and over the next couple years, Otago Polytech adopt it. They receive a lot of funding. They pick a site, which is one we saw before. The infrastructure starts going in. Um, a big part of it was getting a hot wash bay. So like we use a hot water tap that's external to, outside, and a covered sort of bay. So it's actually pretty nice on a cold day to wash the bins. Gabby's done that a few times. Yeah. And basically it's all kind of clicked and going to plan. That's by this point. And they also did a lot of trialing with the previous compost systems, and Kim and Finn also did a lot of planning around, how they could scale up to absorb all the food waste coming out of Polytech. Um, so I think that was a massive part of it, is getting the hot composting and the worm stuff right, before they could sign it off as well. Um, So yeah, it's all tickety boo. They get a design student to help with a bunch of infographics and educational tools. Courtney Forbes, she does a really good job. This is a big on the right here. This big sign is on site, and yeah, is a great sort of because a lot of people at Polytech don't really know. They don't really know what it's for, um why, So it's quite a good infographic. And if we're doing tours or workshops, I often refer to this as well. And then these are the labels that she made to go on the bins. She made more infographics around the different methods of composting that we have around. Um, yeah, and by this point as well, the Otago Polytechnic have made the resource recovery assistant a actual role, um, which is pretty crazy, which is really cool. Um, what's this? This is the mural as well on site. It's called Haumanu. It's about, oh, where am I? And Haumanu means to bring back to life and rejuvenate, which I think is pretty appropriate. Um, what else? What else is here? What other juicy deets can I give you? Um, yeah, but by 2020, 2022, I start and Finn moves off. I'd volunteered with him and studied horticulture and during COVID actually, and was dear friends with Finn. Helped him with a few of the early turns and never crossed over with Gabby though. Never did a night turn or anything. But yeah, so by now it's like a fully operating part of the Polytech, and it's an extension of the living campus sort of thing. Um, and yeah, that's where I am, and I'm a member of it, and I of the living campus. I work with the team all the time. Um, but most of my time is spent managing the food waste here. Um, so I'll give you an idea of where all the waste comes from around campus. So all those red dots are like different bins, and bigger dots mean more stuff. If that makes sense. So it's quite a lot. Um, there's the culinary arts kitchen over here. There's staff rooms all over the place. Eight staff rooms, I think, total. There's the Hall of Residence, which is the biggest emitter for sure. There's the campus cafe. There's the pardon me, stacker bins that are scattered around campus. And my job involves rounding everything up and, taking the full one, swapping out with a clean one. I empty the vessels into the compost and wash and return. It's pretty self-explanatory. But it's big. It's a big net. And I need 20 hours a week to do it. So, yeah, no, I did. We do a lot of material. In 2023, I haven't been able to take data since, lots of reasons, but the one year that I did have the time to do that, we recorded a lot. But I would say also I didn't quite catch every ounce of food waste going in. So I think it would be honestly more like 3.8 ton, maybe even 4, sort of up around then. Um, and that year was actually pretty massive because we would also take on food waste from a cafe in town, side on, which we also counted all of that, and that was 1,230 kilo by the end of the year. So yeah, and I think nowadays it has increased a bit. There's more students at the halls. There's also um yeah. No, so I think that would be another thing to do, and which I really miss actually is taking doing those spreadsheets. I love them. I loved getting my scales out. It was quite time consuming weighing every bucket. You're weighing 20 buckets a day or whatever, and lots of different, shapes and weird. Yeah, and you got to write it down. But it was, yeah, I don't know. It felt really, you get a sense of how much you're actually putting through. Um, and I'm going to jump around a bit to, yeah. So these are those public bins I was talking about. So it used to just be red, yellow, blue, and now it's green as well. And I only deal with the green ones. There's a contractor who deals with the other ones. I would like to get into that. That's another whole can of fish, kettle of fish. And then there's these big ones in the hub here as well. Um, yeah, but I run around and do these bins on the Friday. I think there's 20 of them on my end, and then another 10 that my colleague Michael does on another day. Um, because it's Polytech's a wee bit broken up geographically, so he deals with the stuff further away. And we stopped using the black plastic bags in the green bin, so I'd like to eventually apply that to the other waste streams, which we don't actually deal with. Um, the other three, yellow, red, and blue, um, they're still using bags for collection, which I'm not sure what. I think they just get biffed, which is kind of crazy. Um, So yeah, I rinse them out and return them. Yeah. These are the most contaminated bins for sure because they're the ones people are passing by, They see a receptacle, just goes in. So I'd say like a sixth of all the material in there is actually like yogurt bottles, Coke cans, you know, PLA sort of based stuff. And I have done some bin monitoring in these big ones in the hub here, where you sort of stand with the high vis and inspect people's rubbish, which is kind of awkward, but it's really interesting. And the week that I did that, it was way less contamination, funnily enough. Um, and what else? What else? What else? Yeah, so those are kind of all the main streams that we deal with. But I will jump now to the methods that we use, and it's mostly these three rows of I call them the towers, the compost towers. They're stackable, so they you know come apart. They're made of macrocarpa, so they do break down, but very slowly. They've been there for years and are still in good shape. Replaced a couple boards, but yep, they're not treated or anything. And these big heaps are great for tackling all the sort of the more nitty-gritty stuff like card packaging, paper towels, oily food, carby food, dairy, um, and they're also big volume. They're 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. Does that make sense? And then, so yeah, you can cram a lot in there. I probably fill one of those every 2 to 4 weeks. Um, and they get real hot. They get so hot. Um, and that's just, you're putting so much material in at once, and that just gets the microbial activity absolutely roaring. Um, yeah, no, I usually fill one every 3 to 4 weeks, so it's pretty fast turnover. Um, and the heat is awesome because it breaks things down super duper quick. Probably preaching to the choir. I think everyone knows about hot composting. And I don't, normally we have a sweet spot of like 60 to 70 degrees. Sometimes it does go up. It has gone up to 80. That's a photo I took when it was peak, really hot. But it doesn't last long. And especially if you water it or aerate it. So I think little spikes like that are okay, kind of, but it can also slow down the process if it gets too hot. And I think sort of bad pathogens could start showing up above that as well. So I've I've never been sick. So far, so good. Done it for 4 years. Um, yeah. And it's just, yeah, I like how it is microbial activity that does that. The metabolizing of all the different chemicals in there and the kinetic heat of all that is pretty crazy. It's very alive. Um, and this is kind of the method that we do. Pretty straightforward. It's the lasagna style. You alternate food, sort of green materials, brown materials, green materials, brown materials, watering in between. Um, I usually go like each layer about 10 centimeters high, maybe a little less, maybe more like 8 centimeters. Um, and the water's really good. Water is like the sort of the it's kind of the mm, it's kind of the world that the bacteria live in, I think, in a lot of ways. Like they need a lot of water to live in all the beneficial stuff. So keeping that moisture is real key, especially at the high heats and at a when it's so woody as well. Like we use a lot of wood chip. So I just water. Um, because otherwise it gets quite hydrophobic and can get quite dry and kind of mummified. It kind of has this weird, like you go to turn it and it's just like weird, crispy stuff, and it's not breaking down very well, and that's bad. Um, and sometimes we have this like beneficial anaerobic microbes that we add, which is like in a slurry, and they just help with the anaerobic stuff. So when they, because it's quite a dense environment, sometimes quite compacted, the the bacteria can is more anaerobic than aerobic. So this stuff, yeah, I don't know. I think it helps. I haven't really noticed. It does. It's a nice part of the ritual of stacking everything up. I get my little tincture and um, it's quite helpful. But the recipe is kind of informal and the brown material, like at the moment it's just been autumn and we got a load of leaves that we've collected, which is another brown material that we add, and it's really nice. So we use wood chip leaves. We'll do special trips to get seaweed or seagrass or coffee grinds as well. Um, yeah, because we are processing sometimes like big loaves of bread and dough and yeah. Um, and also this year we're going to add some biochar, see how that goes. We just had a workshop for that recently, so that'll be kind of cool. Um, there's another diagram I whipped up. So we turn like 3 times per row, um, over the course of about 1 to 2 months until it's ready for moving on. Um, I usually get a hand for the turning. This is where Gabby used to help here, and I have a volunteer currently as well, and also gardener Michael. He comes and helps me. Many pitchforks make light work, and yeah, it sort of spikes in heat every turn. Um, I just aerate and water accordingly. Um, uh, what else? What else? What else? Yes.
Yes.
Hello, Astrid. This initial, yeah. So the first heat phase is what does kind of the bulk of the breaking down, I find, is really fast as well. The thermophilic phase, where all the bacteria is doing most of it. There's not many worms actually present in this first part of the process. Um, they finish it off as it cools down, and produce really nice worm cast into the mixture. So that's kind of cool. Um, Yeah, they sort of show up quite at that mid stage. That's when it's like super wormy, and then ideally not super wormy at the end. But also, we often transport a lot of worms when we offload the compost, which isn't a bad thing to have in beds, is lots of worms. Um, yeah, yeah, and I think it's been there. It's been an active site now for like 6 years, so there's just the environment's sort of just they're in there, they're in the ground and they just colonize on their own, show up. I think they did introduce worms from Mitre 10. It's the same, it's the same, and a few other places. I think they had to open up the gene pool a little bit, but it's the same population basically, generations and generations. And it's getting more, I've noticed it being more and more wormy. They're getting more and more and more, which is a great sign. I think it's a sign that we're managing things really well. Yeah, and we do donate or give away the odd bucket of worms or to help enthusiasts or students or the university. We gave quite a few worms to get their hungry bins started as well. Um, Oh, yeah, here's a nice photo of a worm cocoon, which are all throughout the heaps as well. I took this photo maybe last year, I think. Oh, I've gone back to the start of the talk. Hang on, sorry, bear with me. Um, Cocoons, where is it? Yeah, but they're pretty cool, and they can contain up to like 2 to 5 worms. Um, um, and they can live in the soil or the compost heap for a year. And they sort of know when the conditions are right. Yeah, and the worms themselves, I know tiger worms can live up to 3 years old. Three years, which is pretty impressive, providing the conditions are right. I've definitely seen some ones around. You can tell the old ones, they're like quite big. They're quite chunky, well fed. And then you can tell the baby ones too, because they're like tiny, tiny ones. Um, which is pretty straightforward. We got a few other methods as well. We've got these hungry bins on the left here. So we don't put anything too oily or like dairy or carby into those because it's just worms. Doesn't go through that bacteria microbial sort of phase, where the hot composting phase. Um, so it's pure worms and they produce really nice fluffy vermicast that has no woody content and just comes out the bottom. And same with these things on the right here. We've got the tumblers, which I always feel bad spinning the worms. I feel like they'll get dizzy, but produces really good stuff. And often I'll use the tumblers to sort of add worms to the other bins, and you kind of mix it up, match around. Um, um, but yeah, we only put like coffee grinds, lawn clippings, and like veggie and fruit scraps in those. Uh, they can't, yeah, they don't do a lot of the yuckier material. Um, what else? And then we move it on. So there's a good pile there. This was last year. You can see a few worms hanging off the shovel there. Um, and we put it around the Polytech, either edible. How long have I been going, by the way? I don't know.
It's 7:45.
What have I got? 15 minutes?
About
No,
10,
10. Yeah.
5, 10 minutes.
Um, right. Shivers, man. That's sped by. Um, I'm just absolutely info dumping. That's what I'm doing. But yeah, we take it around. It's been really fluffy lately. I think I've kind of reduced the woody content and things seem to be fine. Like it is a 1-to-1 ratio by mass, but I've sort of maybe a little bit less wood. It's like 0.9%, 0.9 to 1. I don't know. And this was a cool project we did recently where they're building this little micro forest, which is right on the edge of where the reclaimed land comes up to. So it's kind of like what species of trees would have been there before it was reclaimed, and we used a lot of compost to skiff across and wood chip and no, yeah, there's about 70 trees in there. So it's cool to know that we're helping stuff like that too. Um, um, yeah, it's a real two birds, one stone. We get to not put food waste in the landfill and get nice, sort of enhance the fertility of the soil all around. And it's really beautiful soil all around campus, I've noticed, because they've been doing this for, 18 years basically, but Pōpopo has only been around for 6 of those years. Um, and it's really upped the ante. Um, we do provide workshops, tours to external, internal groups, talk about worms, how to manage worm bins. We're quite close with the university sustainability group, foundation learning classes at Polytech. We do workshops with them. What's this from? This is from like a seed sowing thing we did with the health students last year, like the sports science students, helping them make seed raising mix from the compost and making seeds and stuff. Sorry, growing seeds and stuff. Um, and we've done a lot of like external events as well. Sometimes people reach out and wonder if they can process their stuff at Pōpopo, and we provide that service sometimes. Uh, Usually like to get a handle on how much beforehand, how much they're thinking or how big they are. Like there was South Dunedin Street Fest, I think was too big, but we did a ID Fashion in 2025, which is a big fashion show in Dunedin here, where they produce a lot of stuff. And this year we are working with kind of auto volunteers, and donating or selling, I think actually, raised beds and compost for them to start growing food. Um, and also last year, yeah, we awareness raising campaign with the design student Jasmine, um, which was pretty cool. These pamphlets were pretty nice. Yeah, I'm not sure how effective it was. It's hard to, it's hard when you've got a turnover of students every year to sort of really constantly remind people. So that's kind of my main struggle at the moment is how do you, yeah, make a wider awareness that is long lasting. Do you know what I mean? I think towards the end of the year we sort of see a bit of a reduction in contamination or like yeah, less food being thrown away, but then every year there's a new batch of students, a good 2,000 new students. So yeah, I guess there's a lot to do. Uh, I'd like to find a good way to compost meat. Currently, I'm separating it and landfilling it because we used to do meat right up till this year, but it was just quite gross. And we're getting a lot of complaints with the smell, and so we can do it, but it was also, I don't know, sometimes you're processing like 20 kilos of chicken nibbles that they cooked and like didn't get eaten, and it's just it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, and we're between offices and classrooms and stuff, so it is kind of gross. But I know you can get like big Bokashi bucket systems, which I think would be cool to do. And it's probably quite urgent because we are probably flicking off about 5 to 10 kilo of meat to the landfill every week, which is not ideal. That's probably over the course of like 20 weeks per year. Um, but the smell is still quite intense, but it's more that silagey kind of smell rather than like septic. It is nice not having to deal with the meat, basically. So, and a lot of the edible food is still thrown away. Like from the Hall of Residents, we still process a lot of because it's buffet style. They just cook and it's sort of serve yourself. So they just blanket cook a whole bunch of stuff and then it sort of gets yeah chucked away. They do rescue some of it, but I'm going to talk to the guy next week, the main chef, about what we can do about rescuing more or like what the rules are because it's quite strict. They're not allowed to reserve a lot of stuff. Yeah. Um, I think just that general sort of ecological literacy across the campus is something I'd like to push more. Um, and it's sort of it's not, it's not a glamorous thing. Not a lot of people are keen to come and turn piles. Um, we're also hopefully this year there'll be a chance to get a bit of extra funding to do an audit around those other waste streams as well. So not just deal with organic waste, but look into the landfill side of things, the recycling side of things, and the glass. Yeah, which would be quite cool because I think a lot of food material still is in the red bins, but I don't know because I don't check them. I just deal with the green ones. Um, and I think yeah, I think actually documenting more of the workshops and stuff like that would be good too because I was really struggling to find photos for that, and we've had a lot last year and less so this year, but yeah. Yeah, so I think that's kind of me. I think it would be cool to see more tertiary education places have their own in-house food waste thing. It is pretty simple. It's pretty doable. it's just like it's just cheaper to put it in the bin. You don't have to pay a guy to or a person to run around and collect and process everything. And I think yeah, I think there'd be a hub like this on every block. Do you know what I mean? It's very scalable, very copyable model as well. Um, but for now, yeah, I'm just carrying the torch at Pōpopo and trying to close that loop, I guess. Yeah, trying to close the loop. Yeah.